Hi, and I am so excited for today's guest. I will be chatting today to Lauren McWilliams. She was the first person I asked to come back on the podcast when I started putting it together. I met Lauren as part of a business accelerator that we're both on, and her presence is really calm. And I just, do this whenever I speak to her. She has just a lovely personality about her. This is what she says about herself, that she works with bold and ambitious entrepreneurs who want to dominate their space with cutting-edge brand photography and daring visibility strategies that will put them in a position as an industry leader. And I love how she does this. She's taken her own experience, her eye as a photographer, and looked at all the things in business, just so much more than photographs. So let me hand over to our conversation and let's get talking. And here she is, Lauren herself. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to hand straight over to you to do a little introduction.
Hello, I'm really excited. So my name's Lauren McWilliams. I'm a brand photographer and visibility strategist, but I'm also a co-founder of Together We Rise Up, which is a community for female entrepreneurs, business owners, and also professionals and students. Really excited to chat to you today.
So, what exactly do you do? Because that's a great title, but for people who maybe don't know what that is,
Yeah.
Explain a little bit about what you do.
So, when I first started my business, so it's 6 years ago now, which feels unbelievable how quickly it's gone. I was doing photography and I was doing a little bit of everything, to be honest, as you do when you're starting off. Didn't have a clue who my ideal client was. Hated that question. And it really started with I was just photographing everybody and everything, from weddings to babies to networking, whatever it was. But I started networking and I loved it. I loved meeting people and hearing their stories. And then it kind of went a little bit further. So I was photographing these business owners. And as I got to know them more, one of the big issues that I found was that people were getting all of these amazing photos and they weren't using them. And the imposter syndrome person, the little voice on my shoulder, was niggling in my ear and it was saying, um, it's because they don't like your photos or it's because you've done something wrong. It has to be a you problem. It's obviously there's not something else there. And I thought, do you know what? I need to actually answer this question. So I went back to a few clients and I said, we've had the photos and you give me really good feedback. Is there anything that's missing? Like, why have you not used the photos? And the big thing was that people just didn't know how. So they didn't know how to tell the story. They felt like they weren't confident enough to share the photos. And something kept getting in the way. So it was obviously a big barrier. And so it kind of developed from that. It went a little bit further of now I've seen the potential of they've got these photos. They need to understand how to use the photos. But all of this kind of like journey of me going through that, I was constantly pushing myself out of my comfort zone as well. And it has been a roller coaster of emotions and confidence, growing, all sorts of stuff that's happened over the last few years. But everything I've learned, I've been really passionate about sharing that with my audience and my clients as well, so that I can see that they can do it. And I think we were having a conversation earlier about, it's that proof of if I can do this, and I honestly was not even doing things like this, I used to hate it. But now I quite enjoy it. I love talking, I love meeting people. But if I can do it, then 100% anybody can do it. And it's just finding your way.
Yeah. So I want to come back to something that was really interesting that you said right at the start, that your first instinct was to be that it was a you problem, like you had done something wrong, your photos weren't good. And that and we all do that, don't we? I don't know why we do it. We make it about us. The first instinct is like, what can I change? What can I do? But I love that you then were like, I'm going to find out. I'm going to ask the question. So what gave you that confidence or that insight to think, right, actually, maybe it is a me problem, but one, I want to know if it is so I can make changes. But two, to find out actually before I start going down this rabbit hole of what do I need to do,
Yeah.
and actually in this instance was nothing. What gave you the sort of motivation to reach out to your clients and do that?
I've always, I think, I've always been a really ambitious person, being from really young. I always wanted to, I was definitely teacher's pet. I loved
Yeah.
doing things well, and I hated being told off, and I hated negative feedback. But I'm a big believer in feedback. So for me, if I can make something better and I can provide a better service, then that's of helping somebody. Whereas if I just do the work and then I never find out, I'm never going to learn from that. And it means that I'm always going to constantly be having that kind of fear and that imposter syndrome. Whereas actually, if I've learnt from the experience, I can make it better for next time. But I've also done a little bit of personal development as well, which is another thing that I just absolutely love. And I just think it's so important. And I think that was the motivating factor of going back and just really listening to my clients rather than thinking, actually, I'm just going to take it on board that they don't like the photos and never find out whether it was me or not. And I would sit there and just punish myself, I guess.
Mhm. And I think we do that all too often, don't we? We tell ourselves a story or we make a presumption
Yeah,
based on an opinion that has no fact. It's
yeah,
just that little, like you see, that little voice in our head. So I love that you are pushing against that. And we all have it. Like, you know, this is what I do for a living. I teach people to believe in themselves. That
yeah,
doesn't mean that Nelly doesn't still sit on my shoulder and be
yeah,
like,
that's
yeah, who do you think you are, Sarah Jane? Do you know what I mean? Rocking up in your bright outfits or telling people these are the tools that will make you feel like this. But actually, if we don't challenge that little voice, we just get stuck. And I love that you said it's not just about your business, it's about your development as well. And
yeah,
you're challenging that. And I think we all have to. It is a challenge. It's something we've got to consistently work at. And I quite often compare it to, going to the gym.
hmm,
You go to the gym and you want to learn to pick up a certain weight. You don't start with, 10 kilograms. You might start with 5 and then 8 and then build up to 10. Or,
yeah,
you do a couch to 5K. You don't just get up and think, well, I'm going to run 5K this morning. You have to learn.
yeah,
But actually, if you learned and you could do your 5K in a great time, but then didn't run for 6 months, you probably couldn't run it again at the same time. You'd have to build it back up again. And I think our self belief and that kind of confidence in ourselves is the same as that we've got to keep working on it. So, how
100%.
do you help your clients now take those amazing images and put them into practice? Because I've had some really good sort of brand photos and then
Yeah,
some really terrible ones.
yeah,
And the difference for me was that conversation with the person taking the photos about what I wanted to achieve, what I wanted the story to say in the photographs. It's all very well going, oh, yeah, look, you look great. But
yeah.
actually, what is that saying to my client? So, how do you get that out of your client? If you've got somebody who isn't really sure what they're wanting to say or how they're wanting to portray themselves, how do you help them see
I
how
think
awesome they are?
I think it's going back to exactly what you've just said there. It's that conversation piece. So something that I adopted like early on from learning from my clients is that a lot of people just don't know. So what will happen is, and I still do it, I do this activity where I'm like, okay, we're going to go on Pinterest and we can do that together or you can do it on your own and we'll look through the photos and guaranteed what will happen is every single time someone will type in brand photography, female brand photography or brand photography and they'll come back with the exact same photos. And I know that every single business is totally different. I know that I'll work with someone who is very loud, bright, vibrant, colourful person. And they'll show me these photos that are like beige and luxury and
I've had those ones.
yeah.
And
So
I'm like, that doesn't look like me. Or looks like a very old version of me. Like,
yeah, that's it. Because we just don't know.
yeah.
So we've typed it in and we think, well, that's brand photography because that's what someone else is doing. So it has to be the answer. So then what'll happen is the other person who's very like quite wears those kind of clothes where they want to feel more luxury and more maybe feminine or whatever it is. But then they'll go for the really loud, bright, colourful ones. And I'm like, they don't match. But it's only by having that conversation can I understand what is right and what's potentially where they just need a little bit of guidance. So it's about asking the right questions. So during our strategy calls, I don't just sit and listen and go, okay, what do you want from your photo shoot? And I'll write it all down. I'm constantly listening for clues. So I'm always thinking about, okay, is this person really chatty or are they a little bit more reserved? How are they showing up when I've seen them in networking, for example? Or sometimes I've never met the client. We've only ever met on Zoom. I've even had a client where I'd never met them at all. So it was somebody else who booked on their behalf.
Right.
And I was trying to search on Google, LinkedIn, wherever to get clues. And I'm like, I've
Yeah.
got nothing until I turned up in this big, beautiful house. And she was like the life and soul of a party. And I was like, okay, I know what I'm working with straight away. I could get that feeling, but you don't always get that. So I think it's really important for anybody working with a brand photographer is to do a little bit of research and understanding who you are and what you want out of it. Because if you just go on Pinterest, type in brand photography, and you get what everyone else is getting, you're not going to stand out online. You're going to have, we've all done it, even myself included, the photos with a cup of tea
Yeah.
and your
Looking off
laptop.
into distance.
Yeah, that's it. Google all of those photos, you can have the same. And yes, it is a little bit of a reflection of what you do, but it's not your story. And I think that's the key. It's like you've got to dig deeper. If you've worked with a coach and they're constantly asking you why, dig deeper, it's the same with photography. If you really want those photos where you turn on the gallery and you think, wow, she's captured me, it's because you've equally put the work in.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think I've had, like I say, I've had several good sets, and they've all done, what you've kind of talked about there about what I wanted to portray. So I've got some that I will use when I'm out in the woods, and we kind of were in that environment. If that's the workshop, that's what you'll be coming to do. So
Yeah,
that is what the photos would represent, and they're used for a specific purpose. My other branding shots that are sort of me, so my Mary Poppins style ones
yeah,
are the ones that I'll use everywhere. But they serve a very different purpose. They represent who I am and how I show up. For me, it almost helped me kind of, I guess, be aligned and step into that as well. So
yeah.
if you've got someone who is a little bit nervous about that, about stepping into who they feel like they are, but they don't always portray it, how do you help? What top tips do you help people to sort of, feel relaxed either on the day or just about owning that kind of who they are, about being themselves? I know we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Once you start showing up as yourself, actually you draw the right people to you. But how do you kind of pull that out of people when you're working with them?
So as well as I wear, I suppose, a few different hats, but as well as the brand photography side, I also do the visibility strategy. So for me, that means that we look at what is the purpose. So if you want some brand photos, great, but why? So it's going back to those kind of coaching questions, I guess. And understanding, right, so you want some photos that represent the brand, or do you want the photos to represent you, your personal brand? Or it could even be a specific offer. So for example, say that you're developing your podcast, you could get some photos that all aligned, just like you would with when you work with a brand designer and you would work with them on getting your logo designed. Everyone wants that straight away. It's like they must have the most perfect logo because if they don't, then their business won't work. When actually, what you actually need to work on is your values, your vision, those deep understanding of what is your brand, what is it about, what do you stand for, and what don't you stand for, because that will play into everything you do from your pictures right through to your logo, right through to the colours that you use, how you show up at networking or on stage, even through to the messaging that you use, because everything has got that deep underlining message. So if you're mix matching all the time and doing lots of different things that, like you said, aren't aligned, not only is that going to be confusing with you because you're going to feel this doesn't really feel like me, but it's a picture, so I'm just going to stick it out there. Or you won't post anything because you think it's not really for me. And then you're also going to confuse your audience because they don't really know what they're getting from you. Because if you're not sure, how can they be sure? I always match it back to that love thing. And seeing as we've just had Valentine's, let's go back to it. When you're meeting someone, you don't just, the first date you might dress up really nicely, second date, etc. But then as you get married, you kind of get to know each other a little bit better. But it still is consistent to, you've been the same person throughout all of that. Because if you turn up looking like somebody totally different on the first date, and then by the time you get married, you think, who's this person I've married? You would have a conflict there. And it's the same with your brand. So I think it is about I've totally gone off sidetrack from your question, but I will come back to it. It
Definitely.
is about getting to that deep underlying understanding of your business, but more importantly, understanding of you. There is a bit of personal work to do there. The way that I get it out is by asking the questions, by building up a really good rapport with my clients. If I'm quite a good, I would say I'm quite a good person to read people, so I can tell when they feel comfortable and when they don't. As you've probably gauged, I love talking, so I can usually talk myself through any situation. And during a photo shoot, that really helps because there's no awkward silence. We're constantly communicating with each other. So I'll be asking them, what have you done this week? What was your favorite client? What do you think about this outfit? And what about this location? So I'm getting them to think so then they forget what they're actually doing. And a lot of times, my clients have come back to me going, I was dreading that, but you made it feel really easy because by the end of it, I'd forgot what you were doing and I was just talking to my friend. And that's how I always want it to feel because then you naturally will just ease off and you stop thinking about what poses am I doing because everyone goes into the robot, which is why I'm doing that. I'm like Gavin and Stacey. But instead, you get them to like calm down and naturally they'll smile. Naturally, they're just talking to you. They're not thinking about the camera going constantly through it.
It's funny you just saying that with your robot hands. Some friends and I, a couple of months ago, did a photo shoot for a clothing brand, which was the most fun. It was so much fun. But at one point, he said, "Can you all just walk past that wall?" We were like, "How do you walk?" And we're like, "Do you walk?" Because when you're told to do something that you would normally do without thinking about, it's
That's
funny,
it.
isn't it? You sort of then just go, "Oh my goodness," and I guess taking that to then how we show up, if we're trying to fit into a box, when they sort of say it's a round peg in a square hole, if you're trying to make yourself behave a certain way or feel a certain way or act a certain way, it's going to feel awkward because you're having to like overthink it. So you're taking that
Yeah.
metaphor quite literally, you will look a bit awkward. Where actually, if you're just relaxed and showed up as you're not thinking about it. It's just who you are, and then you'll come across, as you, and people will relate to that or not, which I always say
Yeah.
is just as important.
100%.
That
Yeah.
your branding and being able to show up as yourself will actually like repel people that aren't your people. And
Yeah.
years ago, I was such a people pleaser. So that used to really, really like, it would give us hives. I'd be like, oh, and I would act this way with these people and I'd be that way. And I was great. I'd actually should have an Oscar for some of my performances. But to fit into those, whether it was a role I was playing, whether it was to make other people feel comfortable, but one that is exhausting, and two, it doesn't get you anywhere because you're just spreading yourself so thin. So for me, once I started showing up as me, it made such a difference in who I then was working with, who I was then had around us. So how do you portray that? How do you get your client to portray that, or even you personally?
Mhm.
How did you step into now this? Because I know you're saying you've been in business 6 years, so well done. How was that journey for you? What have you used yourself to step into this, to
It's
now do what
been,
you do?
yeah, it's been, as I said earlier, just as much my own kind of personal growth throughout all of this, which I'm always learning, constantly pushing myself and my own comfort zones so that I can show my clients that that's possible. So I think it's been nearly 2 years now. I created something called the Visibility Rebellion, and it was all
I
about
love that name. I love it.
well, it is all about standing out for being you rather than following the crowds, rather than following what you think you need to be doing. So even now, I still get questions where just last week I had a client say, right, I've done all my posts for Instagram, love being on Instagram, but when I go on, sorry, not Facebook, when I go into LinkedIn, I need to change because I need to be more corporate. And I'm
That was
like,
me.
no, because those people are going to see you in person and then they're going to get a mixed view of who you are. So you need to be consistent regardless of what platform you're on. Just like you've just said there, there is going to be people who will go, why is she posting that? This is not Facebook. Why is she posting that on LinkedIn? But they're not my people, so I don't care about them. Like
I
I
love
wish
that.
them well, but
Yeah.
that place can be such a powerful community. And the same with networking. So that is a big lesson that I've learned right from the beginning. As I said, networking was my it's the reason that I think my business has done so well because I could build genuine, real relationships with people. But I've been to my fair share of not so great networking, and I've been to some incredible networks. And I think pushing myself out of my comfort zones to test all of them at the beginning, but then getting really strict and putting boundaries in place to think actually I don't need to be in every single room. I need to be in the right rooms with the right people. And again, it's going back to understanding who are those people. So who is it that I want to work with? Who makes me feel good? I've accepted loads of jobs because I've been to say networking and I've met someone, had a really good relationship with that person, and they're like, I've got an opportunity. And I'm like, amazing. But then it wasn't the right opportunity because I was in the wrong room. And I felt miserable through that whole time. And I was just kept thinking something doesn't feel right, but I don't know what it is. And it was that. It was that I was working with clients just because it was, you know, another job came through. So I was going to say yes, especially at the beginning. But actually, since putting that boundary in concrete and really sticking to it, that these are the places that I want to network, these are the people that I want to meet, where are they hanging out? And that sometimes meant that I had to go outside of the Northeast. And that was totally out of my comfort zone. But by doing it, it's allowed me to meet some amazing people that I would never have met before and have some really incredible conversations, powerful conversations that have, again, pushed me out of my comfort zone. So I'm always looking at that. And if it doesn't exist, create it. So that's how Together We Rise Up was born. So it's myself and Christina Lord. We met through the NatWest Accelerator as we did.
Yeah.
Um, and we just got talking and we were like two kindred spirits. We were just chattering away and we're like, imagine if there was this thing and we don't think it exists because we've been to loads of networks and we've just never seen it. And it's not about business, it's not about referring business to each other and pitching yourself, but actually just about relationships and genuinely learning how can I grow as a business owner, as a somebody working in a professional setting, so like working their 9 to 5s, or even students who are just kind of working out the world at that time, and meeting other people where we can learn from each other. So that's what we wanted to do, and we've grown it. Now we've got a room full of people, and we're so proud because we've created something that didn't exist for us the way that we seen it. Um, and it's just started off as a passion project and grown from there. But it is just an amazing kind of tool that sometimes, you think, oh, I'm not finding the right people. Well, create it. There's no rules in business. So you
Yeah.
can
What is
create
it
your
that
own.
Kevin Costner said? If you build it, they will come. And it is that,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah.
There's two things I'm going to come back
Yeah.
to Together We Rise Up, because I just absolutely love the whole concept and I want to chat about it more. But one thing I want to just quickly touch on was that learning to say no. And I think I've been through that, that it's two tiny little letters. It's the smallest word, but it's so big and it's got so much impact, or we give it so much impact that, like,
Yeah.
if I say no to a job, if I say no to behave in a certain way, to show up a certain way, to not conforming, like I absolutely did that on LinkedIn. I am an Insta girl through and through. I love,
Yeah.
how visual it is. I love my stories. Um, and I felt that, right, I need to adjust who I am, not totally change because I've grown and then I know and I don't want you to do that, but I still felt I need to adjust to fit in. And I was like, actually, I don't.
No.
What I need to do is show up as me, because that's what they're going to get. If they book me to come and speak for them, that's what they're going to get. They're not going to get a watered down version of me. They're going to get me, and actually
Exactly.
it will stop those people. But I struggled, again, being a people pleaser. I struggled saying no. So how, and I think you sort of touched on it about working with the wrong clients and then that taking away time
Yeah.
to work with the right clients. But how has the word no impacted you, and how empowering was that for you
It's
to learn to say the word no and
yeah.
actually see the benefit of doing that rather than the negative that we put against it?
I think just like you said, I'm also people pleaser over here. I love people pleasing, or I don't sometimes, depends on the situation. But that has been probably one of the hardest things in business from the beginning. And I think we said something similar at the beginning about being constant work. So it's not just a case of I might make it sound really easy now, but I still find it challenging. You get invited, you meet these people and you get invited to lots of different events and things like that. And it's really exciting and you feel really grateful, but not every event is for you and you've got to be strict with your time. Um, but when you do finally have the confidence to say no and start to realize, actually, I don't need to be in that room, I want to be in this one, you start to push yourself and you start to see the benefits from that. And I think that's where the motivation comes from because you're like, for all these years, I've been going to all these things and I wasn't getting anything. And now I'm being really specific about where I want to be. And the results have changed massively. So, like, I'm starting to build up connections with actual people that are, my ideal clients. And the work that's coming from that really makes me feel amazing. And I want more of that. So, I think it's that proof and that evidence, but we always play safe and play in the, well, let's just keep everyone happy. But is that making us happy? Usually not. So I think it is very much going to that. One example of it is, I think it was last year, somebody who I used to know all the time, I would see them every single networking event. And he messaged me and he said, Lauren, are you okay? I've not seen you for so long. Like, I'm really worried about you. Like, you've just disappeared off the face of the earth. The same day, someone else messaged me saying, Girl, you're on fire. You are everywhere, and I can't get enough of you. And I'm like, how is this possible? That
Yeah.
it just shows you that being online, not everyone sees everything is one takeaway from that. But also the second being that actually the right, and it's not that the person's not nice,
No,
it's
no.
just that that's not who I was trying to attract.
Yeah.
And that the right people who I was trying to attract, it was working. And I think that
I
was a
love
really
that.
big sign.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. And isn't it? You were showing up in the right places
Yeah,
and the people that needed to see you saw you. I absolutely love that example. That is fantastic. So back to Together We Rise Up. First of all, I absolutely love the name. I think,
thank you.
you know, we are absolutely, and I think more so as women in business than men, but it's across, business in general. And
Yeah,
I spent years in retail, and I've been self-employed for sort of 16 years now. And I really found, and like I say, women are sort of pitted against each other. But,
yeah,
well, I know this, so I'll keep it because it'll give me a step up. And I don't know whether I used to often think that came from my retail background of kind of getting the edge on the next sale. But actually, the longer I've spent in the entrepreneurial world, it's just that society is sort of, it almost trains us to do that, to kind of, I know this, I'll not share it. But
yeah,
actually, the second you start, and I always call it pay it forward, the second you start paying stuff forward, whether that's sharing an opportunity, whether that's passing on, somebody's name to somebody else that thinks, oh my gosh, I know this great person. I love connecting people with other people.
yeah,
I quite often go to networking events and I end up talking about other businesses that I know and not myself because I just love doing that. I love sharing because I then also hope that the universe will repay
it'll
that
come
back and
back.
somebody
Yeah,
else is in another room talking about me that I'm not in. And I think if we can all do that, if we can all look for opportunities for each other, and we can all look at those kind of, we're stronger together,
yeah,
it
that's
is
it.
just unbelievable because we can't all know everything. We can't all be experts at everything, nor should we try to. So if we can come together and use each other's strengths to all be better, I just think that's the best way to live. So how did you come up with the name and what are you hoping to achieve with this fantastic, I'm going to call it a movement because I absolutely
Yes,
believe
that's what it
that is
feels
what you're
like.
doing. I really do. Like, I'm so excited to be part of it.
Thank you. Yeah, so like I said before, it was me and Christina, we were chattering away and we'd have all these like deep conversations as you do. And I actually started, so the original story, this is like, I don't think I've said this on a podcast yet, so you're getting the scoop.
Elusive.
Yes. So I co-founded a group when I first started my business 6 years ago with somebody else called Duena's Women. So similar concept, but that was born out of that I'd left my old job due to bullying. I was burnt out from my old job, but it was bullying, and it was from other females. And I'd been in previous jobs, and similar thing had happened where
Yep.
there is only a few spots at the top, and instead of going, okay, I'm going to hold your hand and we'll both get up there. It was stamp on each other's head till we get to that top thing. And I just never understood it. I came out of uni quite naive, I think. And I wanted to just, my vision was I'm here to help my clients, I'm here to try and make a difference in the world. But instead, I had this new kind of challenge that I'd never felt before, and I just didn't understand it. And it was the worst time of my life, in total honesty, my worst time of my own mental health. And I just thought, actually, if I could help other women to realize that we don't need to be doing this, we don't need to be competing against each other. We have enough room at the top, so that we can support each other to get there. And that's not just necessarily professionally, but just in life in general. Another big thing that I always used to hear was, well, I was really young, obviously, when but like when I'd come out of uni and even starting my business, I was only 24, 25 when I started. And even from that, it was constantly this age thing. Well, you're young, you don't know anything in the world, you've got no experience. And it used to drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Like it really got on my nerves because I was like, I deserve to be in this room just as much as you, regardless of age. And it used to really get under my skin. And I wondered why. And I think it is that again, where actually I've got something you can learn from, and vice versa, we can learn from each other. But that attitude and mindset just wasn't there. And so I started it, and it kind of came to an end because of COVID. And the people that we were working with, everyone was volunteering. We were just doing it out of pure passion. But I'd also just started a business and I had to make a decision. Is it the business or is it this other thing? And unfortunately, fortunately, my photography business was making money. The other one wasn't. So anyway, that kind of just like closed, end of an era, moved on. My business started thriving, and I joined the NatWest Accelerator. And this conversation of that happening had happened with NatWest and Christina, and she was like, "You need to bring it back." And I said, "I don't want it to be the same. I want it to be different and have a different purpose." I've learnt loads since then. And that's how Together We Rise Up was born. It was that actually we can, just like you said perfectly, we can be in the same room and it doesn't matter whether there's five photographers there. It doesn't matter if there's six, eight, whatever coaches. We can all learn from each other. There is enough room for clients. There is enough room to, not even in terms of business, but how we support each other. If there's a younger woman in the room, what lessons have I learned? What lessons have other women learned? Menopause is always talked about. People go, well, you don't need to know that yet, but I'm going to need to know it. It is coming in my life at some point. And
Yeah.
sometimes that can happen really early for some women and older. And it's all these things that just weren't talked about at school and college and wherever else. And I think also like some really deep conversations that generationally you didn't used to have with, well, I know my mum never talked to my grandma about those. Grandma never talked about to my mum. She learnt it all when it happened. And I want to put a barrier. I know I'm obviously speaking on behalf of me and Christina here, but I want to put a stop to that. I want open conversations about all the things that we go through. And that is why it's targeted to women, because it's about not just business, it's about everything that we go through, parenthood, being a woman, menopause, confidence, all of these massive topics that we can all learn and mentor each other from.
Absolutely. I mean, which is, that's exactly why I do this podcast. It's called Let's Get Talking, because it's exactly that. Let's have these conversations that we're not having, or that we're not having enough of.
Yeah,
I was just listening. I'm a member of the Northern Lass Lounge, and it's been our mental health Monday today. We've been talking about that kind of relationship with food, and certainly at this time of our lives, you're not quite there yet, but I absolutely am. How that changes, and again, those conversations of
yeah,
that we don't talk about. And actually, it was lovely on the chat this morning that people were saying, "Oh, I've had this," and someone's, "Oh my gosh, so that," and it's that seamless. I know that's not a word, but I'm
yeah,
taking it as a word. It's being in a space where it's okay to kind of go, "Oh, actually, yeah, this is normal," because you sort of rationally know that
yeah.
you can't be the only one going through these things, but to feel it is totally different. Or to be in a room where other people kind of get it and you haven't got to
Yeah.
explain it yourself.
Yeah,
It's
that's it.
absolutely fantastic. And I loved what you said about that there could be five photographers, there could be, six coaches, whatever it might be. Because we're all so, so different. Even if we're doing the exact same thing, we're doing it differently because we're each different, we're each individual. And I always take it back to, for years, I worked in a cosmetic hall into it for a big nail brand. And you go into, any cosmetic hall, whether it's, House of Fraser, Fenwick, Harrods, and you've got, 15, 20 makeup brands. You've got MAC beside Laura Mercier, beside Estee Lauder, beside Clarins. And yet they all sold
Yeah,
makeup, they all sold face products, because different people want different things. So the foundation that you wear won't be the one that suits me. We'll still wear foundation, but we
yeah,
have different needs because of our skin. And I think as humans and as business owners and as women, like, we need to remember that. You don't go in and be like, oh, how dare they stand beside them and sell that because theirs has got shimmer in and that hasn't. You might want a shimmery one, you might not.
this
And
is
it's
it.
about going, you know what, this is what flavour I am. You might want this, you might not. And the other thing I want to really commend you on is that you put something down. You weren't scared to say, look, that's not working right now. I've got to make a choice between my business and this other project. It's okay to make those choices and go, you know what, it's not right now, maybe not no never. And you've brought it back and you've redeveloped it, which is fantastic. But even if you hadn't, it's okay to change what we're doing. We haven't got to stick to something. And
Yes,
again,
yeah.
I think we're very lucky in this age that we have so many opportunities to do this if we just have the confidence to kind of go ahead and do it. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I think a lot of people do, you start something and think, well, I've started this now, so I need to keep doing it. And actually, it's okay to go, you know what, right now I don't. That's not the best use of my time. That's not the best serving me, the best purpose. So I love that. Thank you so much for chatting. We've chatted absolutely loads. I want to finish with one last question, and I'm going to ask this of all my guests. If you could go back and speak to your younger self, what one bit of advice or encouragement would you give younger you?
I love that question. For my younger self, I think it would be not to fear being different, not to fear being someone that not everyone else likes or not everyone else is doing the same thing. Like it's okay to, if I like something totally different and just accept it and most importantly to own it. Because for years, like you were saying earlier, like I just people pleaser and tried to do everything to kind of fit into to groups and actually I like being me. And people are either going to love me or they're not, and that's also okay as well.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Thank you so, so much. Honestly, I could chat to you for hours. I really could. I'm
Thank
going to pop
you.
all your information. So people want to get in touch with you. I'm going to pop all your information about you and your awesome, awesome work that you do. But also I will pop in the Together We Rise Up information so people can check
Thank
out
you.
you and
Yeah.
Christina. Thank you very much for coming on, and I will see you very soon.
Thank you very much for having me. Bye.
Bye. Oh, wasn't that the best conversation? I want to say a huge, huge thank you to Lauren for joining me and chatting to me this afternoon. I just love listening to her, and from her own business of making her clients feel comfortable to show up as themselves. I'm all about this. Be you, believe in yourself. To her fantastic network that she has built and grown with Christina, all about together we rise up. And again, the reason I wanted to have Lauren on and to chat about this is because I absolutely believe that we are stronger together. When we come together and share that experience, that strength, we are just all better for it. And what an amazing thing we can achieve together. So, thank you for listening. If you've liked this, please drop us a comment. Please share it with somebody else you think might like to listen. And of course, as always, let's get talking.